Welcome to Thyatira. I was in the Spirit on the Lord's day, and I heard behind me a loud voice like a trumpet saying, "Write what you see in a book, and send it to the 7 churches, to Ephesus, and to Smyrna, and to Pergamum, and to Thyatira, and to Sardis, and to Philadelphia, and to Laodicea." In our study of the 7 churches of Revelation, we're now looking at Thyatira. Let's start with some ancient history about Thyatira. The Hittite Empire, which was around 2000 BC, the Hittite Empire was a large kingdom that penetrated into Syria, and as you can see in the right-hand corner, covered most of what is modern-day Turkey. In 1200 BC, they moved south but disappeared as Greek colonists soon appeared. These were seafaring Greeks. The first domesticated horses in history were noted to the Hittites. The Hittites were also known for their chariots. You can see the depiction below. That's an Egyptian depiction of Hittite charioteers. They also developed hieroglyphics. It's believed that the Hittites had a more egalitarian community and women enjoying a lot of equality with men. They disappear from history of Turkey in about 300 BC. This would make sense as that is about the time of Alexander the Great and the great conquering of the Macedonians and the Hellenization of most of the known world. This area was soon called Lydia by the conquering Greeks. Stephanus Byzantios, an ancient historian, noted the use of the word Pelopia for this location of the city of Thyatira, renamed by King Sylvestus III of Syria, when he heard news that his daughter had been born while he was at war. Thyatira is the word for daughter, and so the city was named Thyatira. But another interpretation is the word Tira, which means fortress or town in the Lydian language, and it was an important city in the Lydian period. It was surrounded and fell to the king of Pergamum in 190 BC. When Pergamum fell and it was bequeathed to the Romans, Thyatira was included. In 133 BC, due to the politics of the north and the south of Lydia, they suffered many raids and great earthquakes. In 25 BC, in 17 AD, and in 178 AD. But it was rebuilt by Emperor Tiberius in Hadrian. This became a central place for agriculture and industrial development of textiles. Here we see the Thyatira Basilica. This is one of the few remains of the ancient city of Thyatira. As you can see, the modern city has built up and around most of Thyatira. So we have these excavations alone to give us some indication as to the people who lived there and the empires that were there. This basilica is believed to be part of the main agora for the city of Thyatira. The architectural features of this structure have vast amount of artifacts that date back to the Roman period between the 2nd and 6th century AD. This group of structures has an appearance of a social complex with monumental dimensions. Some of its walls have been preserved up to the height of 16 feet. Looking around, you can see the rest of the outlying areas of the basilica and some of the structures that surround it, perhaps stalls or marketplaces. But what's more interesting is the monumental remains that are 20 to 25 feet below the surface. There are mosaics and frescoes and glass artifacts and ceramics from the Roman and Byzantine periods. There are very few remains that even show the Hellenistic period. Geophysical surveys point to the presence of monumental remains, even more structures that lay below the surface as well. Here are some of the artifacts that they have dug up. An ancient fountain on the left-hand side, the base of a pillar that would belong to a temple, or perhaps possibly even used as a base for statues for important people within the city. What else is interesting is notice this road, the modern road on top of a Roman road. This Roman road would have outlined what would have been the agora, the central part of this city. In addition, there would be roads underneath this if we were to continue to dig down. You can see how one civilization builds on top of the other. The city of Thyatira is known for a very special textile. Thyatiran purple is kind of reddish purple. Acts chapter 16. So setting sail from Troas, we made a direct voyage to Samothrace, and following day to Neapolis, and from there to Philippi, which is the leading city of the district of Macedonia and a Roman colony. We remained in the city for some days, and on the Sabbath day we went outside the gate to the riverside, where we supposed there would be a place of prayer. And we sat down and we spoke to women who had come together. One who heard us was a woman named Lydia from the city of Thyatira, a seller of purple goods who was a worshiper of God. And the Lord opened her heart to pay attention to what was said by Paul. And after she was baptized, and her household as well, she urged us, saying, "If you have judged me to be faithful to the Lord, come to my house and stay." And she prevailed upon us. Lydia is perhaps not her real name, but it gives an indication to the area in which she came from. She came from the region of Lydia, and she is from Thyatira in Asia Minor. Many times women could open up their homes to men for business or for philosophers, but this was not Lydia. She was the head of her home. She was possibly a widow, but she does the job of a man, making and dealing. Purple of the Greeks was a deep red, but in the West it became a blue red. Top Bolin observed this: Thyatira was most known for dyeing of purple cloth, a fact which Homer even references in his Iliad. There are two theories as to how this dye was made. One theory holds that the dye came from sea slugs and shells found in the Mediterranean. The other one postulates that the dye was extracted from the roots of plants. The roots of the madder plant are what are used even today in creating this type of dye. Thyatira's inland location most supports the later theory. Thyatira, Lydia's former home, was well known for trade guilds. No other city seemed to have so many guilds as Thyatira. Coppersmiths, bronze workers, tanners, leather workers, dyers, workers in wool and linen and pottery, bakers and slave dealers. All of this according to Blake and Edmonds. You can see here are actual writings on stone of the different guilds. The one on the left of the wool workers, on the right, linen workers. Also, guild contracts were written in stone. There was a great deal of gladiators. In fact, a prominent gladiatorial school was believed to be in Thyatira. Many textiles were made. Wools, fabric, painting, leather, shoemaking, pottery. Craftsmen rose in power and prominence during this time. In the 3rd century, even coppersmiths gained in importance, and mining became one of the key factors of Thyatira. But there were requirements to being a guild member. Required to give sacrifices to guild gods, to eat at guild banquets with sacrificed meat to those gods. And the immorality was often associated with those different banquets. Let's talk about the pagan gods of Thyatira, specifically the guild gods. Hephaestus, also called Vulcan by the Romans, the god of fire, smiths, craftsmen, and metalwork, stonemasonry, and sculpture. Metalwork was one of the fine trades of Thyatira and well known throughout the empire. Here's Hephaestus, and here's Diana or Artemis receiving it. There was a temple to the goddess Diana or Artemis, but in this local area of Thyatira, she was called Boratim. There was no imperial cult temple, however, in Thyatira. So you would think that there was no worship to the emperors, but yet there was still the holding to that imperial cult. And around the 3rd century, Christians who did not hold to the imperial cult or worship of Caesar were sent to Pergamum and were martyred. Tyremos is an ancient sun god of Thyatira. He's later worshipped with the name Apollo, a son of Zeus. This comes into play directly in Revelation chapter 2 as Jesus speaks to the Thyatirans. Tyremos giving his right hand to the emperor in this commemorative coin of the games that were happening in Thyatira. Here's an interesting stone. This stone has the emperor's name scratched out on it. Can you see that? Right here. It's believed that this was possibly Domitian's name. Scratched out for what reasons we don't know, probably by the next Caesar who came and the leaders of the area. When you're writing on stone, the only way to delete a name that you don't want to remember. Domitian's rule was rather harsh and a critical one in Rome. Here we see the ancient city living right in the middle of modern-day Thyatira. Akishar, a modern-day city built up on these ancient ruins that go back over 3,000 years. This is part of the area that the Byzantine Empire would reign and rule up to the 7th and 8th century AD, until Arabic Muslims would come, conquered again by the Turks in the 11th century. But there was a back and forth between crusaders until finally it landed in Turkish hands in the 14th century and remains to this very day. Revelation chapter 2 verses 18 to 29 says, "And to the angel of the church of Thyatira write the words of the Son of God, who has eyes like the flames of fire and whose feet are like burnished bronze. I know your works, your love and faith and service and patient endurance, and that your latter works exceed your first. But I have this against you. You have tolerated that woman Jezebel, who has called herself a prophetess, and is teaching and seducing my servants to practice sexual immorality and to eat food sacrificed to idols. I gave her a time to repent, but she refuses to repent of her sexual immorality. Behold, I will throw her into a sickbed, and those who commit adultery with her I will throw into great tribulation, unless they repent of her works. And I will strike her children dead, and all the church will know that I am he who searches minds and hearts, and I will give to each of you according to your works. But to the rest of you in Thyatira, who do not hold to this teaching, who have not learned what some call the deep things of Satan, to you I say, I do not lay on you any other burden. Only hold fast what you have until I come. The one who conquers and who keeps my works until the end, to him I give authority over the nations, and he will rule them with a rod of iron, as when earthen pots are broken in pieces. Even as I myself received authority from my Father, I will give him the morning star. He who has an ear, let him hear what the Spirit says to the churches." May the Lord bless you after learning more about Thyatira.